For today's topic, we will discuss about something called the five aggregates. Okay, for those of you who are new to Buddhism, again, it's completely okay. Okay, just enjoy our session, sit back and relax. And this is not a formal lecture or anything. Okay, I'm here as a Buddhist monk to share with you from what I have learned in the past 10 years of being a monk. Okay, both meditation practice and the Dhamma that gave by the Buddha, that kept in the Buddhist scripture. So one of the things that a lot of people in the past, the scholar, the great thinker in the past, they always ask themselves about the meaning of life, the nature of life, what is life, where did we come from before we born, and why are we here, what is the purpose of our existence, and where are we going after we die. So this kind of question is, to me, is like a very common question for smart people, for people who are really want to understand their own nature of life or their own nature of existence. But nowadays, not many people kind of pay attention to this kind of question. Maybe because of the life situation has changed, the economic thing, the political things, and even nowadays, because of the spread of COVID-19 virus, people have no time for anything. People need to survive, people need to make a living, and try to accumulate wealth, making more money. So we neglect, to find time to study our own life, our own nature of life, which is quite opposite from the people back then. Okay, for example, one of the great thinkers from Greek philosopher Socrates, he come up with the quote that to me this is something very interesting and I kind of like it. He said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." Okay, in other words, life without examination, okay, is not worth living. And why is that? If we don't examine our life, we and animal may be nothing different. Okay, because animal, they never examine themselves. They think of the bird. The bird wake up in the morning and fly off the tree, go find some food to eat and come back in the evening and sleep. And next morning wake up and go out again, find something to eat. If they're lucky, they may be able to come back home alive. Okay, if nothing happened. And that's the nature of most of the animal. They never examine themselves. They live by instinct. So if human being, if we following the same routine like this, day after day, month after month, and year after years, without realizing or asking the question, what is it that am I doing? What is it that I have been doing? And what is it that I want to do in the future? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? And that is something that I would like to get everyone's, got everyone thinking. Okay, especially in today's session. Hopefully you can start asking yourself this kind of question. And it is very important because we're not gonna live very long. Okay, we born and now we exist, and eventually we will die. All of us, no matter who we are, eventually everyone have to separate. We basically die. And that's, if we know the nature of life, if we know the purpose of life, that would make our lives, better, so we can get the most out of being alive, for the next 50 years, the next 70 years, or however we can live on this planet, so we can happy and enjoy our life with purpose. Okay, so the Buddha is the same. Okay, he always curious about life, and he, I like to use the word, he was a great observer. He observed the nature of life, and he got himself thinking, okay, and why life is suffering, why we have to born, why we have to live, and why we have to die, why we have to separate from people we love, So it created all kind of questions in his mind, and at the very end, he decided, even though I was born prince, I have everything in my life, life was perfect. So he decided to leave everything behind and leave the palace, live the luxurious life, to be an aesthetic, the life of nothing, uncomfortable life. to look for the answer that keep bothering his mind about what is life, what is suffering, and how to end the suffering, how to cure that kind of unhappy feeling or emotion. And that is why he went out searching, and eventually he found the answer. He got himself enlightenment, and he shared with us his knowledge. And that is about the knowledge about Buddhism is all about the nature of life, okay? And that's very simple. So he discovered something called the Four Noble Truths, as many of us may know, that the nature of life is suffering, and there is a cause of suffering, and suffering can be ended, and lastly, there is a way to end suffering. That's the core teaching of the Buddha about the nature of life, okay? And he come up with this. He said, if anyone were to live for 100 years, not seeing arising and passing away, living for one day would be better for him, seeing arising and passing away. So if you read and listen carefully, he gives us some idea that everyone should reflect on his own life. Okay, we're not just born, having family, going to work, and eventually dying. There's something more than that. Here he used the word seeing, arising, and passing away. Okay, what he means by arising and passing away of what? Okay, what is that thing that arising and passing away? And that's something that we are going to discuss today. Okay, and in fact, this is mean the five aggregate. Okay, because the five aggregate is something that continuously rising and ceasing away, moment to moment, all the time, non-stop. And that's something that he discovered, he realized that, and then he shared with us. It's not something that ordinary human being can understand and easy to notice. And that is why we need to educate ourselves and to get to know who we are. Okay, so if you think of all the matters, everything that you see, the trees, the table, the cars, the clothes that you wear, all the matters usually composed with the element. Okay, it's called the primary constituent of matter, or the element. I think it's the classic example that we can use here is the water. Everyone seems to know the water, and we know that the water composed of two elements. Okay, it's combined with one oxygen and two hydrogens. It's become water. When these two elements separate, let's say there's no oxygen or there's no hydrogens, and then the condition of the water is gone. There's no water. In order for us to have water, that water need to have two hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen together become water. So this is the element. And the question is, as a human being, what makes us human? What are the basic elements that make us human being? And that's something, a very interesting question. And the Buddha discovered that there are something called the six elements. Okay, human body we compose of, in the big picture, we compose of body and mind, and the Pali usually use the word rupa. Rupa mean, or rup mean body or matter, and mind in the Pali use the word nama or name, or we can stay with the simple English word which is body and mind. Okay, I try to avoid using the Pali word. Okay, but sometimes when we study Buddhism, it's very difficult to avoid using the Pali word. But again, if I need to use the Pali word, I will give you explanation. Okay, so basically in the big picture, as a human being, we compose of the matter or the body, something we can see, we can feel, we can touch, and another element is called the mind part. Okay, something we cannot see, but we can feel it. Have you ever seen your own mind? Do you know where the mind is in the body? Can you pinpoint where is the location of your mind? Can you tell me the size of your mind, the color of your mind, or the function of your mind? So this kind of question is still remain secret to most human beings, to many of us. But the Buddha himself, he discovered this nature of human mind. Okay, so we kind of know that the mind exists, but we don't know where exactly that the mind exists in the body, right? See, and that is why I usually said, human being, we are born ignorant. Okay, when we born, we know nothing. Everything we know, we learn later as we grow up, and then it become our knowledge. But there is another thing that we have no idea about our own life, especially our own mind. Okay, we know a lot of things. We know how to go to the moon. We know how to come up with new technologies. We know how to make our life live longer with medical technologies, with scientists. Come up with all the new things all the time. But we don't know much about our own mind. Okay, for the body part, we kind of know. Okay, we can eat good food, we can exercise, we can have enough rest, and then we know how to take care of the body. But again, not many people know how to take care of the mind. Okay, and today I think is a good start for us to kind of ask ourselves this kind of question and observe our own life, body and mind, okay, as a whole. So the Buddha discovered something called the sixth element. Okay, the earth elements, the water element, the fire elements, the wind elements, the air element. Okay, so the earth element is something solid, like the bone, the nail, our teeth is something very solid. And water element is something liquid, right? Like you think of blood, of saliva, there are fluid in the body that flow in the body. And fire element is something that the temperature, we can feel that the body has heat. When you touch your body, you know that you still have heat. If we lost our heat, we die. If we get overheated more than 37, and then we in trouble. We need to go see the doctor. We may get a cold or having a fever, something like that. And the wind element is there is the movement of the air in the body, right? Our breathing, we breathing in, we breathing out, and that's the wind element. And what's about the air? Air element is the space in the body. Okay, there are some empty space in the body. Okay, and that's called the air element. So these five elements, scientists know, everyone knows that it exists, just like hydrogen and oxygen. But the Buddha discovered another element which no scientist can prove it that it exists. It has to prove through meditation practice. And the Buddha used the word vijnana. Okay, vijnana again is a Pali word which can translate to English. We can use consciousness maybe, or knowing elements. Okay, this element exists in human mind. We will get to that more in a moment as we learn together. Okay, so this picture gives us the idea of what makes us human being. The Buddha called this five aggregate, or the khanda, which is the khanda means collection. Okay, five group. Okay, these five group make us human being. The first one is called form or matter, this physical body. That's the first khanda, or the first collection, or the first group. And the second one is feeling or sensation. The Pali used the word vedana. The reason I mention Pali word because when you go back to study by yourself, from the textbook, you may encounter this kind of Pali terms. So if you heard about it before, you may feel comfortable with it. Okay. So vedana is feeling. What is vedana? What is feeling? Feeling is when someone asks you how do you feel today, what is your answer? That's feeling. Feeling good, feeling bad, feeling happy, feeling sad. Okay, so that's basically the feeling, the meaning of the feeling. And the third one is sanya in Pali, which is mean remembering. Okay, you have memory of what you eat this morning, of the thing that happened yesterday, the thing that happened last month. You remember your friend's name, you remember the news from television, or the movie that you watched last week. This is the meaning of the remembering or sanya, and that kept somewhere in your mind. Okay. The next one is the sankhara. Sankhara simply translate to thinking. Okay. Mind has ability to think, and you can think of good thing, you can think of bad thing, or you can think, not good or not bad, neutral thing. Okay, and what you think, it will lead you to take action according to what you think. If you think good, you tend to speak good, and then you tend to do good action. If your thinking is bad, you tend to speak bad word, you tend to take bad action. See, this is something that running inside our mind. And the last one is vinyana, or this element is called consciousness or knowing element. Okay, what is knowing elements? Knowing element, and I know, okay, this is orange color, I know this is orange, I know this is human, I know this is bird, I know this is food, I know this is my mom. So knowing is the mind has ability to know. Okay, so these 5 things together, okay, make us human being. And the technical term that call this phenomena or this condition is the 5 aggregate. Okay, everyone following me so far? So just hang in there. Okay, try to keep it simple. So the body part, everyone's know. Okay, it's easy to notice, easy to observe. Okay, the body or the matter is composed of these 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and air. Okay, and scientists says, every 1 minute, more than 300 million cells in the body die. It dies. So that means we today and we yesterday, or we last week, last month, may not be the same person, because many cells in the body die and get replaced with a new cell every 1 minute. You imagine 300 million cells die in 1 minute, and that's a lot of cells die. Okay, the nail today, the hair today is not the same hair, not the same nail. So the body, okay, continue changing. Every time that we breathe in and breathe out, cells die, and the body, replaces itself with a new cell. Okay, and if you look at yourself in the mirror, or look at the picture that you took 5 years ago and today, you may notice that you're not the same person. You're getting older, you may have some wrinkle, you may have some gray hair, and 10 years from now, 20 years from now, okay, again, easy to notice that, hey, we have changed a lot. Okay, we're getting old, and we don't look the same as we were young. Okay, and this nature of the physical body. And the Buddha pinpointed, the human body is just one set of aggregate. The aggregate that make us human body. As you see in the picture, the aggregate, one set of the aggregate called woman, one set of the aggregates called husband or a man, and one set of the aggregates called a child or their son, and another set of aggregates called a dog. Okay, which is the pet that they have in the house. So human being basically a group of aggregate, okay, that stay together with condition, and that's basically the 5 aggregates. What about the mind? Okay, the mind part have another 4 elements. Okay, knowing element, feeling elements, remembering elements, and thinking elements. This is the ability of the mind, what the mind can do. Okay, so there's another thing that help us to understand how the mind works. That thing is called the sense faculty. Okay, we have physical sense faculty. We have eye to see the object. We have ear to hear the sound. We have nose to smell the odor, and we have body to touch, to feel the touch, and we have tongue to feel the taste. We also have the mind to understand, to know the thinking. You may look at the mind as one faculty. Okay, the mind has its own object, which is mental object, which is the thinking or the idea. The object of the eye is something that we see, right? The object of the ear is something that we hear. The object of the nose is something that we smell. This is similar to the mind. The object of the mind is something that the mind think of. This is the idea of the thinking. So you may look at the mind as the one of the faculty that's a refined faculty that we cannot see, but it works the same. It works the same way. So when we perceive, when the eye see the object, let's say we see something, we receive information through the eye. Okay, we hear the sound comes to the ear. Both of the thing that we see or the thing that we hear, this information go directly to the mind. Okay, first the mind will acknowledge that the mind has, remember, the mind has four element inside the mind itself. It has ability to remember what is that thing, what is that noise. It has ability to know. It has ability to think, and it has feeling. When we see something, feeling happening, okay, thinking happening, knowing happening. It's happening very quickly. It's happening almost simultaneously. Okay, same thing. When you smell, you know what kind of smell. When you taste the food, you know whether it's spicy or it's sweet. When the body touch something, you know this is soft or this is rough. You know, you can make decision right away. And when something come to your mind, you know this is good thinking, this is bad thinking. Okay, so let's take a look at the example. What do you see when you see this picture? This is beautiful car, beautiful Lamborghini. Okay? Everyone knows that. Oh, some people might think, oh, this is expensive car. Some people may think that, oh, I want to have one. You know, some people may think, oh, it's too expensive, I cannot afford to have one. You know, so some people may think, well, I don't even need the car. You know, I can go to work by bus. You know, see, people see the same object but think differently. Okay, you have different way of giving the meaning to the object that you see, and that thinking create different action. Okay, so what about this one? Okay, you see the food in front of you, you know what it is, you automatically know what it is because you remember this is called hamburger. And you know what inside, what ingredients. There is a beef, there is a bread, there is a tomato, there is onions in there, and you remember how it tastes. Okay, so it happened very quickly when you see the object through your eye. Some of you may feel like, well, I'm start hungry now because of this picture. See, and that's thinking that create your feeling. What about this one? You may be running to the beggar on the street that need help. Some people right away give the person the money, and some people go talk to her, and some people just ignore and just walk past by. And some people may feel like, oh, this is very annoying, why don't you just go to work, you're not handicapped person. See, we see the same object, we see the same people, the same person in front of us, but we think we have different interpretation of what we see, and our thinking create our action, create our attitude toward the person or the object that we see. And this sometimes is called a karma. Okay, because when we have negative thinking toward the people or the thing that we see, we tend to have negative action toward that thing. But when we have positive thinking, we may offering her a hand, we may give her some money, we may give her food or something like that. So it creates a good action, it creates a good karma. And the Buddha said, this is what he wants us to understand. This is the most difficult philosophical aspect of the world's five aggregates. The Buddha wants us to understand that dukkha, what he means by dukkha is, it should be said that the five aggregates of attachment or clinging on five aggregates is dukkha, or suffering. Suffering is not just physical pain or headache, it's deeper than that. Okay, and that is why when we learn about the Four Noble Truths, we must understand what the Buddha actually means by the word dukkha or suffering. So he means, clinging, wrong will or wrong clinging on the five aggregates is what causes us suffering. And why is that? Because he said whatever is impermanent is dukkha or suffering. These five aggregates, body, mind, feeling, remembering, thinking, everything here in the five aggregates is considered impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. So by means of the right wisdom to be seen as it really is, the reality is there is nothing called mind, and this is am I not, and this is not myself. There is no permanent self or no permanent entity in the five aggregates. This is quite deep, but just take this information first and then you can digest later. Okay. So at this end of this sharing, I come up with summary or the point for consideration. Maybe you can take this home and reflect, a little bit deeper, when you have time. Number one, human being, we are composed of something called the five aggregates, which is body, right? Feeling, thinking, remembering. Again, this is something that I want you to maybe have this picture in mind. Okay, the 5 aggregate. Okay, this is physical body or form. The second aggregate is feeling or your sensation, and the third one is remembering. You have ability to remember and thinking, and the last one is knowing or consciousness. Okay, so these 5 things together become us or human being, and nothing here is permanent. Okay, it's a stream of continuity that keep on changing moment to moment. And then again, this is number 2. There's no permanence. And the third one, the third point is suffering. According to the Four Noble Truths, number 1, which is dukkha. The Buddha emphasized that clinging on the 5 aggregate cause life suffering. Okay, because we cannot cling on, or we should not cling on something that impermanent. Once we have the wrong view and we cling on something impermanent, we will end up being suffer. Okay, and number 4, life is an uninterrupted continuity of conditioned phenomena. What is conditioned phenomena? Conditioned phenomena is these 5 aggregate. Okay, these 5 things stay together with condition. Okay, it's continue changing, and this is you can look at life as a stream of 5 aggregate that keep on changing moment to moment all the time, non-stop. And last one, for us to be happy, okay, make sure that you guard your sense door well. Okay, because whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever you smell, whatever you touch, whatever you taste, can cause you suffering if you don't aware, if you don't mindful what you see. Okay, when you see the new iPhone, you may want to have it even though your phone is working fine. You see, in the cause of suffering, there is something called the tanha, or the craving. When we're not mindful of what we see, the craving start take control of our mind, and it tells us, hey, you should get the new phone. Your phone is getting old now, even though the phone is still working fine. And because of that craving, because of you're not mindful of what you see, or not mindful of what you think, then you have to buy yourself a new phone, even though you don't need it. This is just one example. Okay. I hope you see the big picture of what makes us human being in the eyes of Buddhism. Okay, and this is something that help us to understand the nature of life. If we understand nature of life as a 5 aggregate, that nothing permanent and nothing lasts forever, then it helps us to kind of easy to let go. Maybe if things happen, we kind of talk ourselves out of the situation, because we have no authority or no power to even control ourselves, not to get old, not to die, not to get sick. And how can we have the power to control others? If someone die or someone gets sick, people we love pass away, nothing much we can do, because we also cannot tell ourselves to remain young forever. We cannot tell ourselves to not to die, basically. And if things happen, okay, by having this knowledge, by understanding the true nature of life, so we don't clinging on, okay, something that impermanent. We have wisdom to understand, and it helps us to let go maybe a little bit easier. Okay, instead of keep on being sad or keep on suffering yourself and keep on crying. So we enlighten ourselves. We give ourselves wisdom. Once we understand, and then we are liberated, no more suffering. If we don't understand, we will stuck with the same negative thinking, and we will continue being suffer over and over, cannot and don't know how to get out of that. Okay, so with that, I believe I'm done for today. Hope everyone learned something, and if you have something to share, or maybe you have some question, again, feel free to ask. Okay, so the 5 aggregate topic is a big topic, just Buddhist introduction, and so I hope encourage everyone to go back to kind of get to know your own self, and let you know that, hey, maybe a lot of things that you don't know about your own self, and it's a good time for you to start dig deeper to get to know who you really are. Okay.